Hi everyone, this is Marina Joseph, an HPAC ambassador, and today we're going to be talking about study tips. I'm going to be giving you guys 4 study tips, and these study tips have definitely gone a very long way in my academic journey, and I hope they do the same for you. So we'll get started. Okay, so I guess I kind of lied. It's more like 5 steps, with the first step being step 0. So our step 0 is to make sure that you eat, sleep, and exercise. All 3 of these are very much related to your cognition, your ability to concentrate, and your ability to retain information. If you don't already know, there are a ton of resources on campus that can help you with all 3 of these. The first being our pantry, we have the rec center, and we have so many other resources in between. So please, please, please feel free to reach out to HPAC if you do have any additional questions on how to access those resources. Now, our first resource is going to be knowing what kind of learner you are. This is essential because the tips that you personally use can not work for someone else, and the tips that someone else uses cannot work for you. And it really all just depends on what kind of learner you are. So there are 4 different types of learning modalities. There's tactile, so this idea that you, for example, want to hold and touch a ball and stick model in order to understand some kind of chemical structure. Our kinesthetic learners are very much learners that like to use their entire body. So if you're a kinesthetic learner, you're going to find that you like to, for example, walk back and forth while doing note cards. Maybe you can even dance out something in specific, etc. Visual learners, these are people that really like graphs, really like drawing things out, etc. And then our auditory learners, which those are the learners that might want to record lectures, etc. And in case you don't know what kind of learner you are, there are a ton of quizzes out there. All it takes is for you to Google learning modalities quizzes or something along those lines, and you'll find a ton of different quizzes. One that I've used before is Chegg. I found that one is pretty useful. Also, BuzzFeed has their own, Lifehack has their own, etc. So make sure that you use those resources. Also, within that category of knowing what kind of learner you are is also, are you an individual learner? Do you need to sit in a quiet space? So if you really need a quiet space, go on the 4th floor of Rivera. It is extremely quiet, but they do have limited hours. Are you the type that just needs to sit down, internally process everything, and then be able to shine on the test? Or do you need a group setting? Do you need to speak things out into existence and kind of externally process things with other people, hear what other people have to say things that will benefit other people, and kind of work in that sense? Or does it depend on the class? Maybe if it's a really hard class, you want to shift to group learning. If it's maybe more of an easier class, you want to switch to individual learning, or maybe more of a memorization heavy class would be individual learning. It just really depends on the person. So really just contemplate on that and maybe test it out and see what you find works best. Now, my second tip for you guys is schedule your studying. So I think that many of you guys could relate to this, but for example, you finish your 3 p.m. class and your friend asks you, hey, do you want to go out for lunch? And you say, yeah, sure. I don't have another class until 6 p.m. And there's that automatic urge to say yes, because you have nothing on your schedule that's telling you that you need to be somewhere right there. So with that being said, it's really important to schedule your studying and really just remember that it's a thing, especially during midterm weeks, midterm heavy weeks, final weeks, etc. You're definitely going to want to dedicate more time to studying than possibly other extracurriculars, social gatherings, etc. And what I personally use is Google Calendar. In case you don't know how to use Google Calendar already, we have a whole nother video on that. for just time management in general and how to utilize Google Calendar. It's an amazing resource. And I switched from the traditional writing method to using Google Calendar once my schedule got more complex. My third piece of advice is quizzing yourself. As a supplemental instructor and as a student myself, I can tell you for sure that there is a huge difference between being able to understand the material, like being in lecture and being like, sure, yeah, I know what you're saying, and actually knowing the material as an individual person separate from all of your lecture notes. So it's super duper duper important to be quizzing yourself regularly and really questioning if you truly genuinely know the material. That is very much the difference between an A and an F. I've seen it myself, I've seen it in my students, so make sure that you find a way to quiz yourself. And there's a ton of different ways that you can do that. You can make a Quizlet, you can get together with a friend and have your friend question you on certain things and you question your friend on certain things. You can ask your professor if they have a practice test or check iLearn to see if they've already published a practice test, etc. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can quiz yourself. And then last and not least, definitely know your resources. Know and use your resources. It's insane how many things that us as UCR students have access to. Our school is an extremely supportive school, and you are paying for these resources, so you should definitely take advantage of them. You are not alone in anything, especially on our campus. There are so many resources out there that are designed literally to just help you succeed. So here are a couple. First of all, office hours. I've never had a class where the professor has not had office hours. Almost all my professors, in addition to their normal office hours, are willing to meet with me and other students outside of their office hours if we're not able to make it. So be communicative about that. Check your syllabi and go to office hours. Really, professors are not as intimidating as you think. They're really genuinely here to help us learn. So feel free to go to office hours. We also have the ARC, or the Academic Resource Center. That's kind of adjacent to the hub, and the ARC has a bunch of different resources. You can get free one-on-one tutoring, which is amazing. Normally tutors can charge really anywhere from like $30 to $100 to maybe even more than that. So it's amazing that we have this free resource at the tip of our fingers. Say, for example, that you are a first-gen American like myself. If you immigrated and you're having trouble writing an essay or something along those lines, go to the ARC. They can pair you up with someone that can definitely help you. SI too. I have a special part in my heart for SI, supplemental instruction. It's amazing. I shouldn't say most, but a large majority of classes do have a supplemental instructor assigned. And if you're interested in group learning and also being able to quiz yourself, SI is the place to go to. It's, again, a supplemental form of instruction. Many of you guys are familiar with it if you have ever been in a learning community. And it's this idea that post-lecture, one individual will be in charge of teaching a group of students, or rather, not so much teaching, but engaging with students and the material simultaneously, and just really facilitating a nice learning environment there. These are students that have taken the class and succeeded in the class, so SIs, they know the tips and tricks in order to get through class.